Good morning or good afternoon, dependent on where you are in the world. Welcome and thank you for joining the first installment of our tutorial series, Leveraging Glassdoor Analytics. My name is Nina. I'm an Associate Marketing Manager here at Glassdoor, and I will be your moderator for the day. So a couple of webinar tips for attendees before we get started. Your audio is streaming over the web, so please make sure that your speakers are turned on and turned up so that you'll be able to hear all of the wonderful content we'll be sharing with you today. All lines will be muted to avoid background noise, but you can ask questions at any time by typing them in the Q&A tab in the lower left corner of your window. To be mindful of everybody's time, we will address those questions at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to shoot those through whenever you may have them. And for all you social butterflies out there, I'd like to invite you to join the conversation with us socially using the hashtag GDChat, as we will be live tweeting throughout the webinar. Our handle is GD4Employers. That's GDFOR Employers. And now I'd like to introduce our amazing speaker for the day. We're joined by Alana Filipovich, who is a Customer Success Manager here at Glassdoor. So without further ado, Alana, I will pass it off to you.
Thank you, Nina. So I have been a Customer Success Manager with Glassdoor for over 2 years now, and in that span I have worked with clients in all different industries from SMB to enterprise, so I hope that some of the information that I'm able to convey here is relevant to everyone on the line. As my title suggests, my goal is to help my customers see success with their Glassdoor investment, and then help them maximize both the branding and recruiting pieces of the product. In this capacity, I've seen a lot of clients use Glassdoor Analytics to really optimize their presence in the space and then garner valuable insights that help them attract quality candidates. So to quickly go over the agenda, my plan today is to give you a very high-level overview of the kind of analytics Glassdoor offers, both for partners and for free profiles. So we'll go over why metrics matter, understanding your Glassdoor data, what can you do today to get started, and lastly, we'll leave some time for Q&A. So today's candidates spend more time researching companies during their job search than ever before. At a very high level, metrics matter because today's candidates are now spending so much of their time and effort in their job search researching and becoming informed candidates. This is because today's candidates treat their job search as a critical decision, one where they rely on reviews, research, referrals before making a decision on where they want to go to work. In fact, 83% of job seekers look to company reviews and ratings when making job decisions. And when you think about the 41 million visitors every month that Glassdoor sees, it's the natural destination for job seekers, both passive and active. Now, as much as candidates are researching you, you can also use Glassdoor data to research them right back. Glassdoor offers a huge subset of data around visitors to your page, and we can use this information to target the right candidates strategically and understand what appeals to them. So because of the wealth of information on the internet, job boards, professional networks, social media, etc., candidates have very high expectations. Like, when was the last time you booked a hotel without checking TripAdvisor? And obviously, we all check Zillow, let's admit it, to see how much our neighbors paid for their homes. So we are spending time looking at these reviews. The same goes for job seekers, and this trend is rapidly on the rise. So these days, job seekers want way more information than just the job description. In fact, according to our surveys, the top 5 things job seekers want to understand are what makes it an attractive place to work, the comp, the benefits, the mission, vision, and values, and obviously the basic company info. Glassdoor is a very valuable tool to help you answer these questions for those candidates and then tell your company's unique story in the same breath. Job seekers want to hear everyone's perspective. Although friends and family are still the most trusted, at around 72%, content provided by employees is the #2 most trusted source of information on a company. This crowdsourcing mentality is here to stay, and I hope to encourage you to really lean into it. It's crucial to remember that employees don't demand perfection from the company where they work, but they do expect a level of transparency and authenticity from their employers. Candidates will read an average of 7 reviews to help them get a balanced understanding. And we trust our audience to be practical and not be swayed by one very bad review or one 5-star. They want to see a balanced perspective. 90% say that they want to work for a company that embraces transparency, according to a Glassdoor survey, which is great news because just by being on this webinar, you are showing your commitment to transparency and being engaged. Overall, this is why it's critical for you as the employer to establish metrics and understand what your company data is saying about you and how this will impact your bottom line. So on a more granular level, metrics and data matter because they help you tell the story of what is happening within your organization. From this information, you can train your team to spot faults or weaknesses in your hiring process, to measure employee sentiment, you can spot reputation trends, and gain an understanding of what types of candidates are researching you. I completely understand that this wealth of data is a double-edged sword. It can be very intimidating when you're not sure where to get started or if you are solely in charge of the initiative. I'm hoping to derive some manageable pearls of wisdom to help you feel more comfortable and excited about the project instead of nervous. So when you're thinking of where to start, it's most important to listen, measure, and iterate. When you listen, honest feedback will help your organization continuously adjust, grow, and improve. What forum are you giving your employees to communicate with you? Is it anonymous? Do they feel safe from any kind of retaliation? Are you listening to the feedback? How are you making sense of it and applying it to your recruiting strategy? Few things are worse for morale than employees feeling their feedback is falling into a black hole. Then to measure, take a look at your recruiting strategy. Does your strategy match the behavior of your candidates? And then do you even understand the behavior of your candidates? Who are your competitors? How do you stack up against them in the war for talent? If you're making a case for recruiting initiatives and/or budget, you need to have the numbers to back it up. The folks in charge of distributing the budget are influenced by hard data. And then lastly, iterate. What worked 10, even 5 years ago will not work today, and agility is key. You need to stay very flexible and understand that not every change will have an immediate or even expected impact. That's okay. Just keep trying and keep listening. Leverage data to build new processes at your company and increase recruiting efficiency. Applying these 3 steps is essential to making sure that this data, your data, is working for you. So let's take a look at how we can understand Glassdoor data. Now onto the nuts and bolts of it. You may have noticed actually that we've had a bit of a facelift. We rolled out our revamped branding strategy just this week. We really tried to practice what we preach. So what we were hearing was that the site felt a little outdated, and we heard it. We heard the feedback, and we refreshed our appearance and our functionality to continue exceeding expectations. So if you haven't been on the site lately, I encourage you to come back and check out our fresh new look. So the first thing you want to do is access your Employer Center, which is basically the back end of your Glassdoor profile. If you haven't claimed your free employer account yet, now's the time to do it. For brevity's sake, quick note, I will refer to the free employer account as an FEA going forward. Your Employer Center is where all this valuable information sits. The first step is getting in there, getting acquainted with your data, and beginning the evaluation process so that you know how to use all of your analytical data to your advantage. Of course, our support team is always available if you run into any trouble. So when it comes to understanding Glassdoor data, there are a number of different components you can assess. I encourage my customers to use candidate demographics to define your candidates, compare hiring processes to competitors and to themselves over time. Where are you exceeding and where are you falling behind? Analyze interview feedback to understand if the changes are working. Spot trends in your reviews, both good and bad, and then utilize the company ratings and updates. So let's take a look at some of what's available. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the data sets available to Glassdoor users. Some of these are part of the paid partner profiles, and some of these are part of an FEA. But how do we turn this information, this whole wealth of information, into action items? The reality is that we all want to know how we stack up against our competitors, which is why analyzing candidate behavior in order to navigate and manage this competitive landscape is critical. You can measure demographics, profile traffic, followers, engagement, and impressions on company updates. You can analyze rating trends, see comparisons to competitors, etc. in your Employer Center. Catch my breath, that's a lot of data. All of this allows you to take advantage of step number 2, measure. So we already have agreed that people are visiting your profile in droves to learn more about you. How can you use all that traffic to your benefit? And as a quick note, you'll see here in the screenshot where you can access. So employer profile activity right here on the drop down on the left is where you'll find it. Looking at the peaks and valleys in your traffic can give really interesting insight into what's going on with your company. Were you in the news recently? Have you increased the number of jobs you have open? Have you been posting company updates that have been resonating with your audience? All these things can cause spikes. In the same vein, compare yourself against your competitors. Are they doing something that has led to a traffic increase? Can we figure out what it is and potentially do the same? Speaking of company updates, let's take a look at the impact they can have and how we can use rating trends to move the needle. So company updates are a feature of the partner profile, and they function as status updates to get distributed to your followers. Not only do they demonstrate that you are an engaged employer, but they also help you disseminate important information around, for example, upcoming hiring events. You can then analyze which posts have been most engaging. Leverage this data to hone in on what content works best for your audience and curate content that is appealing to them. This one is one of my favorites. Company ratings lets you spawn trends of your company over time. You can check out breakdown of your ratings by culture and values, work-life balance, senior management, comp and benefits, and career opportunities, all those categories that reviewers are asked to rate. We know that these 5 areas are most important to candidates when researching new opportunities based on Glassdoor economic research. So use this information to measure sentiment over time and spot areas for improvement or areas that are working well, and then reward the folks in charge. Using candidate demographics, you can begin to evaluate the types of candidates that are researching you and applying for your open recs. Who are your candidates? What self-reported job titles are looking at your profile? Where are they located? Are these the same metros where you have offices or have recently advertised? What's the demographic breakdown? Are you appealing to a diverse group of candidates? Or maybe you're trying to focus on a specific recruiting initiative. By looking at the demographics of your candidates, you can understand whether your initiative is working. These are the important questions to ask yourself. And from these questions, you'll be able to get a pulse on what your company message is saying. It's also important to look at your followers. These are the people actively choosing to engage in your brand. These increases or decreases are incredibly powerful when it comes to gauging your brand awareness with potential applicants. Interview feedback. This is another section that is rife with usable insights. Let's take a look. Using interview feedback is one of the most powerful ways to use your analytics because you get to take a deep dive into how your own candidate experience compares to your competitors. This information will help you distill actionable takeaways and areas for improvement in the race to win the top talent. Candidates get into the job-seeking mentality, and efficient candidates are applying to multiple positions. No surprise there. You need to stand out. So how do you stand out? How do you stack up, both positively and negatively, against your competitors? So assume that you are company A in this case. 60% of your interview candidates said they had a positive experience. Compared to company B, that's great news. You're doing fantastic, head and shoulders above their experience. Let's look at the interview outcome. More candidates are accepting your offers than your competitors. Great news. But then look at the interview cycle time. Even if you have a better experience and a higher acceptance rate, you are still likely to lose a candidate based on time alone. And for the majority of recruiting teams, they simply can't afford to do so. Just as an example, anecdotally at Glassdoor, we work very hard at our candidate experience. And when our head of HR looked at our hiring process, she realized we had 7 steps to complete. Of course, we are worried about the cost of making the wrong hire, as is everybody. But as a result of that, other Silicon Valley companies were stealing our candidates during the lengthy process. So we understood that we had to work harder to find a balance. All in all, this data can help educate you on opportunities just like that. So leverage that data to make educated decisions around how to improve your interview process. Along with existing employee sentiment, you can also evaluate how your interview process stacks up. What are your candidates trying to tell you about their experience? Using built-in word clouds, we can begin to see common trends, then tag them back to specific reviews. When candidates decline an offer, of course this can be very discouraging for a recruitment team, but listen to the reasons behind their decisions and strive to improve. Understand the interview review breakdown for specific departments, functions, and levels, even locations or job titles. For example, what is my acceptance rate in Milwaukee versus the Boston office? What's the acceptance rate in my marketing department versus my engineering department? If you see a big discrepancy, you can identify your hiring superstars. Can those offices or locations train or teach other departments? So where do we start here? Especially in a large organization, you'll need to dive into the ratings by department, job function, and location. Is this time intensive? Yes, of course, it's a commitment. But when you compare to the potential inefficiency of putting the wrong candidates through the entire interview process just to have them decline an offer, it's a very worthwhile investment, and I'm sure the recruiters and the folks funding the recruitment department would agree. You can also get insight into your competitors' hiring processes. As you read competitor interview reviews, ask yourself the following questions. Are they using assessments or testing to screen candidates? Are they using video interviews? How well organized is their interview process? Are they asking creative questions? Where are they investing their recruiting efforts? Campus recruiting, staffing agencies, referrals? Where do they post jobs? How long does their process take? Are they closing the loop with their candidates? Who is involved in interviewing? Are they being transparent with candidates about job descriptions and where they stand in the process? Obviously, we want to know this about our competitors, but it's also wise to ask these questions of yourself. Are you happy with the answers that you're able to provide? Analyzing and leveraging this data is critical to seeing how you do stack up against your competition. It will help you spot faults and weaknesses in your process and show you areas where improvement is needed. It will also arm your HR team with answers when candidates bring up other companies during the interview. So your reviews are one of the areas where you'll find the most value in your analytics. Don't fear the review. Of course, it's really hard not to take some of this feedback personally. I absolutely understand. But from my experience, successful HR teams really bite the bullet and use what is basically free survey data to adapt and grow. Again, here we have word clouds that you can use to pinpoint patterns in specific job roles or even satellite offices. It's important to understand what this data is telling you. Are your employees happy? Are they dissatisfied? What are the key areas for improvement? The word clouds are a great place to start. How are these reviews affecting your brand? Word clouds are a glimpse into your brand and company that candidates are seeing when they come to your profile. Leverage this data to affect change. So now that we've covered some of the tools available to you, what can you actually do today to start leveraging this data and affecting this change we're talking about? So your reviews. I can't emphasize enough how valuable this data is. Through your reviews, you can monitor your ongoing performance in terms of employee sentiment. I encourage you all to check your reviews daily and keep this information top of mind as you use it to distill takeaways and glean what's actually happening within your organization, good or bad. I very much understand the temptation to just pretend they don't exist if they're not entirely favorable, but really that's only going to serve as a detriment. Lean on your word clouds. If something is trending, look into those reviews. This will help to inform you of what you're doing well and then where you need to improve. Leverage this. Let your employees know that they're being heard. Lean on your interview feedback to refine your processes. Use this information to spot what's broken. Take that feedback and implement ways to improve. And make sure to brand your interview experience. It should be unique to you, speaking to your brand throughout the experience. Again, for example, walking through the Glassdoor doors during the interview process is a very unique, very branded experience and very different from any place else that we have interviewed. It illustrates what life at this company is like. It really gives some insight into what working here would be like for the candidate, and that's very compelling. As you learn about your hiring process and competitive hiring processes, I also encourage you to consider which tactics you would like to adopt or how you can strengthen your process in a way that fits with your company's unique culture. Here we have made changes to our recruiting process based on external feedback because this is extraordinarily valuable. Give yourself a chance to correct your actions. Getting leadership engaged is usually the most difficult step of the process, but leveraging your data can make the case for why your CEO should be more involved and become an advocate for employees. It can be lonely at the top. The day-to-day concerns of a CEO are obviously very different from newly hired employees. When armed with information about what's really going on inside the company, CEOs can make better decisions on behalf of staff, thereby increasing employee engagement, customer service levels, and bottom line profits. If you're able to provide an employee sentiment analysis, that can be very helpful. Like we saw, Glassdoor word clouds allow you to easily show executives the top-level sentiments found in your reviews. For instance, an organizational change or industry upheaval is bound to affect employees. Gather this data related to a large company events through employee surveys, Glassdoor reviews, and internal focus groups, and use that information to help brief the CEO on what's really going on inside his or her company. Provide data. There's no arguing with numbers. When a CEO sees a low satisfaction rating or the number of visits to the Glassdoor page, they are bound to take action. And involve your CEO in Glassdoor. Depending on the size of the company, it may be worthwhile to ask the CEO to read and respond to Glassdoor reviews. In fact, some CEOs set time aside every week to do just that. It helps them keep their finger on the pulse of employee sentiment, and it also sends the message that the CEO listens and cares, which is extremely powerful. So some key takeaways. Take the time to watch, learn, and listen. Pay attention to what the data is telling you, and then use your findings to affect change. Thank you very much for listening, Nina. I'll turn it over to you to field some of the questions.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Alana, for sharing all of your wonderful information with us today. As she just mentioned, we will now open the floor up for questions. So if you have not yet asked a question, please do so now by typing it into that Q&A tab that you see on the lower left corner of your window. And for those of you that did ask, we will be sending out the slide deck and recording of this tutorial within 24 hours. So just be on the lookout for a message from me with that information. All right, so the first question that we have in the queue is, how can I get access to all of the analytics that you mentioned?
So the good news is that everything we talked about is in the Employer Center. So most data sets are available as part of the free employer account, the FEA. So make sure to claim yours by going to your company's profile. It's really easy, and it's the very first step you can take. If you are already a partner, lean on your account management team to help. As a CSM and a member of that team, this is my favorite part of the job, is helping to formulate strategies and making our customers successful. And we can always point you in the right direction and help you come up with a strategy around both branding, recruiting, reviews, really anything.
Awesome. Thank you. And the next question that we have is, if you had to choose one analytic specifically to focus on first to affect change, which one would you recommend?
I would say start with the interview feedback. Make sure that your candidates are having an outstanding experience from their very first contact with your company. Obviously, first impressions are so crucial, and that feedback is helping you to understand how the interview process feels from that first phone call to the offer, and if there's any place that you are losing valuable candidates and thereby losing money, frankly, because it's so expensive to hire the wrong people or to lose out on the candidates that you've invested a lot of this time in.
Perfect. Thank you. And kind of going off of that question regarding the interview feedback, is there a place where you can ask a candidate to write a review about their interview experience?
Absolutely. Yes. That's just like you can review the company where you currently work as an employee, you can write a review of your interview process on the company's profile. So what I've seen a lot of companies do, and I think this is great, is after the candidate comes in for their interview or at some stage, they get an email follow-up and it says something like, "Thank you so much for coming in. We really value your time. We'll get back to you in XYZ time frame with some more information. Here's a link to our Glassdoor profile. We'd love to hear your feedback on how your interview process went." And then be very conscious of those answers and make sure that you're using them to modify the process and improve as much as you can.
Perfect. Thank you. We've had a couple questions then asking, is this interview feedback available with an FEA or only a paid profile?
It is available with an FEA, and you can respond to both employee reviews and interview reviews without being a partner.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question that we have is, it is a statement around negative reviews. So what is the best way that you can, respond to these negative reviews if you have them on your profile and really use that data to benefit your hiring process?
I think, and this is tricky, but I think the most important thing is to view them as an opportunity instead of a challenge. So we always encourage employers to respond to both positive and negative. Obviously, the positive is more, joyful to respond to. But if you treat the negative review as you would a positive review and you thank the reviewer for their feedback, address their concern, let them know they're heard, and then let them know if there's any steps being taken, that creates for a really positive experience for that reviewer. They feel that their feedback was taken into consideration, but even more importantly, it speaks to the people reading the reviews. So The person that left the review, maybe they're no longer an employee. All right, well, that's that. But the candidates looking at the reviews and doing their research, they are looking to see how your company responds to feedback that may not be super positive. And if you show, and if your CEO or HR leaders show that they are open to feedback and treat it respectfully, and that they don't get defensive and they don't answer in a sarcastic way, the candidates can breathe a sigh of relief that they're coming into a very safe space. We have such a wealth of resources around reviews because obviously, as with the nature of Glassdoor, this is obviously a question that comes up all the time. But we have a ton of ebooks and templates on Glassdoor around this. There's information you can share with the C-suite, and we're actually having a power panel that's called How to Recruit with Reviews coming out on May 18th. So that's going to be available via live stream. And we're going to have some really cool people from Genentech and Tello come and talk about how they've used reviews, both positive and negative, to impact their recruiting process in a positive way.
Awesome. Thank you. So on the topic of reviews, the next question that we have is it a good strategy to ask employees to write reviews, whether, if they are leaving for positive reasons like moving, or say that they've been a new hire after like a certain number of days?
Absolutely. Obviously, the goal is to have an outlet for reviewers or for employees to give their feedback before that step. So hopefully there's an HR anonymous line or some sort of space that they can feel comfortable leaving that feedback while they're still employed. But when it comes to new hires, I think that's a great idea. We recommend setting a schedule that maybe after 90 days in a role, we reach out and say, hey, how's everything going? How was your interview process? Then maybe year anniversaries are also good times to reach out. We caution against just asking the entire company. That doesn't feel very organic. But if there's certain teams that are performing very well, like certain offices that hit their quotas and the employees are happy, ask them, what is it that makes you like working in the Chicago office, and what do you recommend other offices do so they can hire other awesome people like yourselves? Perfect. Thank you. The next question, just touching one last on that review topic, is it possible to download the review data? It is. Yep, that's a feature of the Employer Center. Awesome. Thank you. The next question we have is, do you have any advice on kind of how to start growing your company presence on Glassdoor? So that's going to be a little bit of a different answer whether you have a free employer account or you're a partner. You still have a lot of options as a free employer account. Make sure that all your company details are accurate, address, size, all that. And add pictures. So we're very visual people, so photos are great to see. Once you partner, you have a huge space to work with in terms of adding videos, working on your Why Work For Us section to tell your story. You really use your profile. Think of it as another opportunity to tell your employment strategy. It's not necessarily an advertisement for your product or your service, but instead, what is it like it's an inside peek into what life at your company is like. I've heard it described, which I really like, as if you were at a barbecue and somebody asked you, how do you like working at Glassdoor? What would you tell them? What pictures would you show them around, fun company events you had or team building, or what do the offices look like? What does lunch look like? If somebody were to accept this position, what would their day-to-day be like? Who are they going to work with? That's usually very powerful to see on a profile. Perfect. Thank you. The next question we have is in regards to the monthly visits that are cited in the analytics on your company page. Are those unique visits, or does it include repeat visits? It does include repeat. We don't have the capability to track uniques at this time, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you think about repeat visitors, those are people that were engaged enough the first time to keep coming back. And we know that candidates are using Glassdoor at every stage. They're using it to find the job, to research the job, to research the interview, and then research the salaries when it comes to negotiation. So it's very common, and where we expect to see a lot of repeat visitors to your profiles.
Awesome, thank you. And so it looks like with that we are at the bottom of the half hour. So I did want to say a special thank you again to Alana for joining us today and sharing your wisdom. And thank you to everyone on the line for joining us. We know it's not always easy to take 30 minutes out of your day, so definitely appreciate you tuning in. If we did not get to your question, we will do our very best to follow up with you post-tutorial so that we can make sure that you walked away with all the information that you needed. So with that, we will let you go, and thank you again, and we'll catch you next time. Bye, everyone.